Good morning. Welcome everybody to our second-day working sections of 2017 Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. Today's working section is on accelerating efforts on building community resilience to disasters. As you all know, this forum is to assess progress of implementation and share good practices, knowledge, to forge partnerships, and to promote the integration of disaster risk reduction across the relevant sectors. So to start this action, first of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Dr. Win Mia A, Union Minister for Social Welfare, Relief and Resettlement of Myanmar, that is Burma. And our ministry is responsible for national disaster management and also responsible for social protection of Myanmar people. Therefore, the issue to raise awareness for resilience against disaster becomes one of our tasks. It is my privilege to co-chair this section, and I believe we can identify key elements and formulate recommendations to strengthen resilience at the community level. I simply hope that we can share experiences and learn each other's success stories during this section, and these will certainly guide our efforts to integrate disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and sustainable development goals for our people and our world. As everybody knows, community is the vital social capital which has played at the forefront of disaster preparedness, relief, response, and recovery. If the communities are equipped with required resources, skills, and capacities, they will enable to build up a resilient society. In turn, building community resilience is the stepping stone for achieving sustainable development in the long term. On the other hand, in most of the developing countries, communities have certain limitations for awareness of disaster risks, capacity to reduce risks, and prior and systematic coordinated networks to help each other when disaster happens. In addition, high rural poverty, internal migration, and degraded environment resulting in low-intensity disasters have a big impact on thousands of households, especially in our low and middle-income countries. As disaster impact all sectors, we need to enhance our coordination and cooperation among stakeholders. We have to create a new practice to manage disaster risks rather than to manage disaster events. For the communities, we should try to accurately inform about the threat with enough warning to protect from suffering losses through soft and hard measures to withstand any impacts by timely support of community members, emergency services, and robust healthcare system, and to be able to re-establish former conditions using Build Back Better as a guiding principle. Now, I will hand over microphone to Mr. Alhad SC.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank Dr. Win, my honorable co-chair, and value very much the insights that he shared with us. Well, risks are in communities. That's where it happens. It is in communities that shocks are felt. That is in communities that hazards are felt first. And then people react to that. They react in different ways, depending on the coping mechanisms they have, the capacity they have, the enabling environment they're in or not. Reactions can simply be kind of a passive acceptance of the situation. Reaction can be a denial of the situation. Reaction can be an understanding of the situation and yet no action taken to respond to it. And that is the reason why it is very important to make a difference right from the beginning between a community response versus a community reaction. It only becomes a response when then communities are going beyond awareness and build on their own resources and the relationship among the members to find appropriate coping mechanisms, to develop strategies to respond to their needs. Unfortunately, quite often those strategies are stretched, and they are stretched to the max. And that is the reason why we cannot equate every coping mechanism to a resilience. Sometimes it is just because people don't have any other choice. Often they don't have any other opportunity, they don't have any other possibilities than to adjust and then adapt to the situation. So many a times, people go into their norms, go into their values, into their resources, and develop those coping mechanisms that are respectful to their environment, respectful to the relationship they built and the social capital they have, and develop appropriate and pertinent mechanisms and ways of responding. And that is what the resilience is about. What are the resources, the capacities in the communities that can help them improve their situations and get into situations of vulnerabilities so that when a shock arrives, when a hazard arrives, it will not necessarily turn into a disaster. There is nothing like a fatality between a natural hazard and a natural disaster. Yes, there will be always a monsoon season. Yes, there will always be a cyclic droughts, but it is not necessarily acceptable that each of those phenomena turn into a disaster. Our level of preparedness and the capacity to respond effectively and the capacity within communities, to locally, have the means, to adapt, will be determining the fact that it will become a disaster, or not. So resilience then will be about accompanying communities to build on their resources, develop their own strategies and their own mechanisms to respond to the shocks, and then have the capacity to bounce back from those shocks and find themselves in a situation that is very different from the one they were themselves in, when the previous shock arrived. Going every time into the same place, with a response and covering year after year, a great number of people in need may not necessarily be a good measure of success. Success will be measured at the end of the day through the number of people, less people in need. Next time around we come, less people in situations of vulnerability when the next disaster strike, less people to be covered, with our response. And that will be the great indicator of success and a great indicator of community resilience. We need now to go back to the values that allow that. How do we build the trust? How do we have the respect? How do we then accompany them to recover what is most important to them, which is the human dignity? And how it is the partnerships can be built on the longer term, a longer term commitment, a longer term partnership that will allow also to go into the depths of the vulnerabilities and then help people to get out of it. So we hope that in this session, we will hear from our distinguished panelists different experiences that will illustrate ways in which communities are being accompanied to build their resilience and to, of course, also learn about the bottlenecks that we may have encountered along the way so that we can better understand how to remove them, and we better also understand what are the facilitating elements and factors along the roads that we can build on, to make sure that the ambitious programs that we have, such as the 1 billion Coalition for Resilience, becomes a reality. And together, through our respective inputs and contribution, we, by 2030, reach 1 billion people whose capacity will be strengthened and they will be getting out of situations of vulnerabilities. So on that note, I would like to hand back again to Dr. Wynne to introduce our distinguished panelists that will share with us. And I know that many of you in this room are also actors at communities level on your own rights, and we hope to get your contribution as well as your insight to make this session as rich as possible. Thank you very much, and back to you, Dr. Win.
But before starting the panel discussion, I would like to introduce all the panelists. The lady on my right is Miss Annie, right? And she is Director of Programs at the Development Network of Voluntary Indigenous Association in Kampala, Uganda. And she has been lobbying for the participation of civil society organizations in the development of disaster risk management bill that will harmonize all sectoral laws on climate change and disaster risk reduction in the country, and coordinated CSOs put into the bill in 2006. She was praised and supported by the Ministry of Disaster Risk Management, and she coordinated the organization of National Celebrations of the World Disaster Risk Reduction Day 2016. She also organized a national policy dialogue that brought together national policymakers, members of parliaments, commissioners, CSOs, private sector, and local farmers to improve adaptation to climate change in agriculture. And she also initiated a popular national television program, that is the People's Parliament, that gives voice to the locals, speak out their concerns to the national policymakers on pertinent issues in service delivery and resource misappropriation. And she is part of Global Network on Disaster Risk Reduction, and she finally contributed to the online consultative process and platform of disaster risk reduction organized by UNISDR in the lead up to the 2017 Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, and presented a case study at the 2013 Global Platform on DRR Geneva. And the gentleman on my right is also, he is Mr. Ivan. Yes, Mr. Ivan. And he is the national president of National Commission for Prevention of Risks and Emergency Response, Costa Rica. And on my right, the next to Mr. Evan is the Mr. Vincendi and Rimondo, and he was born in Madrid, and after receiving the journalism degree in 1994, and he traveled to Guatemala, and he joined the European Commission Humanitarian Aid and Civil Protection Office, and where he continues to work as head of regional office for Mexico, Central America, and Caribbean. His professional experience includes both conflicts and natural hazards. And then the lady on my left, she is Miss Mara, and is the president of Regional Green Cross and the Regional Women for Life Forum. She is currently volunteer at the National and Regional Risk Management Roundtable. She has a diploma in risk management, gender and human rights, humanitarian leadership, women and local development, women and professional training. And she has acquired strong experience on domestic violence and management mechanisms, post-disaster recovery planning at local level. And next to her is Mr. Kiroshi Murakami, and he was born and raised at city of Rikuzen, Japan. And he is a special advisor to president of Awadi University since 2016. And he has extensive experiences in human resources management at multinational financial institutions. and he published his first book in Japan, Changing World Through the Development of Riku Center Kata, March 2016. And he received BA in Government from University of San Francisco and MBA from Iriyama Gakuin University, Tokyo. And he is active member of American Japan Society, Tokyo, and Society of Human Resources Management, USA. And the last but not the least is my good chair is Mr. Elnett Essie, and he is the General Secretary, IFRC. And now I will hand over the microphone to Mr. Elnett Essie to invite each panelist for discussion.
Thank you very much, Dr. In, for introducing these very distinguished panelists. I would like also to remind us that we have in the room Ms. Elizabeth Longva, the Director of Development of the Government of Norway, who's listening very, very, very actively and will then contribute as a discussant, in this very important session. And you all, audience, are also discussant, from whom we would like, to hear. But as we already said, it is happening at the community level, and resilience, I could almost say, is a journey, the journey that communities, do, undertake. And I would like to ask Ms. Bermudez that from the perspective, of the communities, what does she see? What do you see, Ms. Bermudez, as challenges in that resilience journey and opportunities, that can be seized also to that we can all learn from to facilitate and accompany communities in that regard? Over to you, Ms. Bermudez.
Buenos días. Buenos días a todas y todos. Es realmente un placer y un privilegio para Honduras poder estar en este panel. Desde mi experiencia, desde ese trabajo de gestión de riesgo que llevamos a cabo, ¿verdad? Realmente desde la Mesa Nacional de Incidencia para la Gestión del Riesgo. En cuanto a lo que decía el secretario, realmente la experiencia como mujer dentro de este espacio ha sido una experiencia muy exitosa. ¿Por qué? Porque resiliencia no solamente es cuando tenemos desastres, resiliencia no solo es cuando hay inundaciones, sismos y todo lo demás. También la resiliencia a la pobreza en que vivimos en muchas comunidades, la resiliencia, cómo hacer para ser resilientes, ¿verdad?, a esta situación. Ahí hemos tenido la experiencia con grupos de mujeres, red de mujeres, jóvenes y niños, en donde hemos empoderado a mujeres, jóvenes y niños, pero repito, para que en este tema podamos ser realmente agentes de cambio en nuestras comunidades. Y cuando decimos agentes de cambio es para darnos cuenta que hay que reaprender para poder hacer de nuestras comunidades exitosas. Y eso ha sido posible gracias a todo el empoderamiento que nosotros tenemos ahora, realmente desde los líderes de las comunidades. Tenemos nosotros capacidades instaladas dentro de nuestras comunidades en donde hemos llevado a cabo iniciativas microempresariales que han venido a fortalecer la economía en los hogares, especialmente en el sector seco de Honduras, ¿verdad? El corredor seco, en donde la pobreza no era tan así como que la pobreza, era una pobreza extrema, es una pobreza extrema todavía, pero ya hay cambios en estas comunidades en donde los líderes y lideresas se han empoderado de esos cambios que tenemos que hacer ante esta situación. Y las comunidades se han dado cuenta de la vulnerabilidad, ¿verdad?, que realmente tenemos, porque miren, las personas, las mujeres, los hombres no somos vulnerables. nos vuelve vulnerable la situación, nos vuelve vulnerable el sistema en que vivimos, ¿verdad? Pero es realmente impactante saber que ahora tenemos mucha gente trabajando en este reaprender para poder hacer de nuestras comunidades resilientes, comunidades que tenemos que no nos podemos ir de ahí para decir vamos a vivir en otro lugar en donde no haya tanta vulnerabilidad. Tenemos que estar ahí. Y ese estar ahí es reaprender, es cambiar nuestra mentalidad, cambiar nuestra forma de vivir para poder hacer todo posible. Los éxitos han sido buenos, han habido momentos en donde, como la rosa, ¿verdad?, preciosa y todo, pero también hay espinas, ¿verdad? Pero hemos podido salir adelante gracias al trabajo que se hace en coordinación con las autoridades municipales, regionales y nacionales. Y hoy la mesa también, ¿verdad?, ya no es solo de Honduras. Tenemos la concertación regional, que es el espacio en donde Centroamérica trabaja mucho ahora el tema de gestión de riesgo. Y esto nos fortalece más y esto nos da a nosotras y a nosotros como personas cambiantes, ¿verdad?, la posibilidad de poder tener dentro de esos momentos difíciles que vivimos, ¿verdad?, saber que somos resilientes. Y resilientes no solamente, ¿verdad?, en el momento, sino el trabajo de prevención que hacemos, para que los impactos no sean fuertes, para que los impactos no sean realmente en donde antes perdíamos tantas vidas humanas, sino que ahora lo importante es salvaguardar la vida de nuestros compatriotas, de nuestros vecinos, de todos los que vivimos alrededor de comunidades que somos vulnerables. Esto ha sido un reto desde el espacio que inicié yo como red de mujeres, donde tenemos microempresas de mujeres que ahora son autosostenibles, ¿verdad?, bancos comunitarios, ¿verdad? Tenemos en la zona sur de Honduras, ¿verdad?, estas pulperías que decimos nosotros por allá, en donde ya la comunidad tiene acceso a los alimentos básicos. Y esto es gracias a ese despertar, esa educación que la población ha recibido, ¿verdad?, para no solo cruzar los brazos y esperar una bolsa solidaria cuando tenemos un evento, sino saber que el evento llega, pero que no impacte tan fuerte y que podemos reconstruir nuestras comunidades de acuerdo a todos los conocimientos que hemos adquirido. Ha sido realmente importante la participación de la mujer, porque vean, yo no sé si solo pasa en Honduras, pero allí en Honduras las mujeres somos casi la mayoría trabajando en los CODELES que llamamos allá, que son los comités de emergencias locales y los comités de emergencias municipales. La mujer está ahí, pero no es un trabajo fácil para nosotras, porque siempre ustedes realmente deben de saber, las mujeres más que todo que estamos, siempre dicen el género va transversal, y yo les digo, dense de cuento, ya la cosa no es transversal, estamos ahí y necesitamos estar en los espacios de toma de decisiones. ¿Por qué? Porque si no, entonces nuestra participación siempre va siendo una participación débil y una participación invisibilizada, y ese es el trabajo que hacemos, ¿verdad? Ya logramos dentro de lo que es la Mesa Nacional de Incidencia para la Gestión del Riesgo, construir la política de género de nuestra organización. ¿Para qué? Para que tengamos la igualdad de oportunidades, tanto los hombres como las mujeres, ¿verdad? Y salgamos adelante en este trabajo y en esto que Dios ha puesto en nuestras manos, que es el tema de gestión de riesgo. Realmente es importante reconocer el trabajo arduo que hacemos en los centros educativos, los trabajos que hacemos con los líderes, los campesinos, las mujeres, en donde empoderadas ya ahora son capacidades instaladas que tienen un empoderamiento en el tema de gestión de riesgo, ¿verdad? Que vamos, como ya conocemos nuestros derechos ciudadanos, entonces vamos a los municipios con los alcaldes a decirle aquí estamos, sabemos que necesitamos que haya una oficina de gestión de riesgo. Allá en Honduras ya no queremos que exista solo una unidad ambiental, sino la oficina de gestión de riesgo con un técnico capacitado, con un presupuesto asignado, y vamos diciendo aquí estamos para construir juntos ese presupuesto para que haya una prevención cuando los eventos llegan, que nosotros no nos puedan impactar tan fuertemente. Y eso se va haciendo paulatinamente, como les digo, no es fácil. No es fácil, no todos los alcaldes entienden el tema de gestión de riesgo, ¿verdad? No todos los líderes también lo entienden, pero ahí vamos, tratando de hacer posible que este tema sea realmente importante. Y eso nos da entonces la posibilidad de venir desde lo local hasta lo global. Yo vengo de una comunidad, de una aldea que por ahí queda en un municipio de Honduras, ¿verdad? Trabajando el tema de gestión de riesgo desde mi experiencia con trabajo con mujeres, porque trabajé en la municipalidad, ¿verdad? Y luego entré en esto de la mesa de gestión de riesgo conociendo el tema, involucrando a las mujeres en el tema de gestión de riesgo, ¿verdad? Porque hay muchas situaciones que se presentan cuando hay un desastre en nuestros pueblos, ¿verdad? Violaciones, acoso y todo eso, y la mujer se tiene que empoderar en todo esto, ¿verdad? Para saber que somos la parte activa y que somos la voz de los sin voz.
Muchas gracias. Please join me to thank Madame Bermudez for excellent introduction to get us kick-started. So we will come back definitely to all those extremely important points back in our discussion. But let me now move to our next panelist, Mr. Murakami. Mr. Murakami, you were in Tohoku at the time of the 2011 earthquake. From that very difficult experience, you also learned, how one can apply some of the lessons, for the future. And one can also learn from everything that goes right, because even in the most difficult circumstances, we found things, that went right while addressing things that went wrong. From that experience, how do you see then community involvement, participation, and engagement in terms of resilience building? Over to you.
Thank you very much. Your introduction, as well as great questions, Your Excellencies, Mr. Co-Chair. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this is my great honor to be here at Global Platform and to present lessons learned from our experiences of 2011 large-scale disaster of tsunami in my hometown. My name is Kiyoshi Murakami. I'm currently serving to the city of Rikuzen Takata as Senior Executive Advisor, similar to a Vice Mayor, as well as Professor and Senior Advisor to the Iwate University, one of the national universities in northern part of Japan. The tsunami also changed my career as a senior business person at international banking. I'm using some presentation slides over the screen so that it will be more visible and easy understanding for all of you here what I'm talking in Japanese English. First, city of Rikuzen Takata is located at the northeast part of Japan, as you see. It was a very beautiful resort city with thousands of tourists visited there, like here in Cancun, although Japanese people do not take much vacation as you do. Now, on March 11, 2011, mega earthquake and a tsunami hit my hometown of Rikuzen Takata. We lost about 2,000 lives among 24,000 populations and wiped out 4,000 houses out of 8,000 and all public business facilities in the city. This devastation created 12,000 displaced people on that date. All of the electricity, telephone lines on land and mobiles were also completely out of service for almost 1 month in the central city, and then 3 months at some places in the city as well. However, we received massive emergency assistance and support from Japanese Self-Defense Force, other local governments, international communities worldwide like yourself here, and volunteers. I really appreciate your support to City of Rikuzen Takata so far. Within 2 weeks, with strong leadership of Mayor Mr. Futoshi Toba, the city started to develop the recovery and reconstruction plan with technical and financial assistance of central government of Japan, even though we lost about 120 city officials among 400, that is considered to be 25% of the civil servants in the city. While being refused at an emergency shelter like this, we felt that whole city completely lost our eyes, and ears, and hands, and legs. But we did not lose the strong hope and dream to rebuild the city with much more better city than before. We had to overcome the devastation to create new city for the sake of residents, as well as the carry on the wills of those 2,000 people lost their lives to develop the city, not only people here, but also for those young children for their future. Thus, we developed the fundamental concept of rebuild the city to create most resilient and beautiful-minded city, and then to create city with inclusion of anyone in older, elder, people with special needs, single mothers, children, non-Japanese, and LGBTs. Now, recovery planning. We set 8 years time frame for the reconstruction plan with two phases. One is recovery planning, another one is recovery planning plan implementation phases. The recovery planning to promote reconstruction and improve vitality of a city through cooperations and collaboration with citizens by showing the vision for creating the city into one where everyone can live in hope and a dream of the future. Secondly, the implementation phase is to realize the basic outline and the basic plan in the disaster recovery plan. Some reviews were also made and new projects were added in line with the current situation. During our first phase, we conducted a number of small discussion meetings with local community representatives and residents, as many as possible, starting September 2011, which is 6 months after the disaster, to get the consensus of reconstruction plans for whole city to rebuild. In the past 6 years, we developed the whole city completely below zero basis to now as the resilient city with high sea walls, group relocation to higher landscapes, a land elevation for the central city area. Mr. Co-Chairs, ladies and gentlemen, as per our fundamental concept of the rebuilding city, inclusion is essential innovative concept for the development of the hard infrastructure and social programs. We use that phrase to create city with unnecessary to use word of normalization, which means as long as you keep saying to seek that inclusive society, we are not realizing the inclusive society yet. So we should be deeply developed the inclusiveness so that it is norm for us to be inclusive anytime, anywhere in the city. This is the same as no one left behind in the concept of SDGs. We are still working on the developed city with collaboration with universities, such as Iwate University and Rikkyo University in Tokyo. We are also established Rikuzen Takada Global Campus to provide the further research and study training of disaster management for various students, academic professionals, and top leaders of local and national governments. This will also be contribution of the City of Rikuzen Takada for the rest of the world based on our Sendai framework. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now you, Mr. Murakami, telling us we can not only build back better, but we can even rebuild from below zero. I mean, if it is really about resilience and looking into the future, there is a great example that we will come back to and then discuss. So let me move now, for the sake of time, very quickly to our next panelist, Ms. Akwongo. Again, communities are forefront of disasters and have to deal with multiple risks in a holistic way. We know that those communities that are hardest to reach, they face the multiple deprivations, and engaging with them, so we learn a lot. So what are the particular learnings that you would share with us that can foster community resilience and then build partnership at all levels? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Chair, and my colleagues, the panelists here. I come from a background where I interface directly with communities that experience disasters on everyday basis. And I'm so privileged that today we are discussing about turning words into action. And my experience is mainly going to inform how do we achieve integration of sustainable development, climate change, and disaster risk in the community. I would like to begin on a personal note. I believe I get my inspiration from the Bible, and in the books of Proverbs, chapter 23, it says, "As a man thinketh, so he is." And I believe that if we start thinking integration, then we can be able to achieve it. Before I can share my experience, I would like to underscore that integration begins at design level. Designing, which is a process, it's an engagement process. It's a process that involves negotiation with all different key stakeholders. So if we are to achieve integration, we must be able to create a process that engages all interest groups, which includes women, children, people with disabilities, people at the front line, private sector, civil society. It's only then that we can be able to design policies, legislations, and strategies that can achieve integration and resilience at community level. Now, I'll share an experience of a project that we implemented on building the capacity of local communities to achieve adaptation in climate change, but mainly focusing in agriculture. My country, 90% of disasters in my country are as a result of climate change impacts. And so it's characterized by floods, long droughts, and landslides. So we go to this community to introduce knowledge about adaptation in agriculture. At the design stage, we actually had designed that there will be collaboration with local government, there will be collaboration with private sector, there will be collaboration with media. As often it is with many projects, we go with our assumptions. We go when we have already established the outcomes we would like to achieve, minus involving what the communities have to say. So we went knowing that at the end of this project, these communities should be able, one, to use improved seed, fast-growing seeds, drought-resistant seeds, and so be able to increase their production. But in one of these particular communities which lives near the lake, they were bold enough as we were engaging with them to tell us, no, we don't want crops. We would like you to build our capacity to do fish farming. Of course, that threw us back because fish farming had nothing to do with the outcomes of the project. But we were humble enough to listen. And so we brought in the technical fisheries officers to train these communities on how to establish fish cages in the lake. At the end of the day, as I speak right now, the community, that particular community has been able to establish 4 fish cage farms, each hosting 10,000 fish. They pulled their own local resources. Nobody funded the capital they used for starting the fish cage. At the end of the day, they are employing young people to clean the fish. They're able to sell their fish to a fish farm that processes it. They're able to have income in their homes, and they are still engaging on issues of protecting the lake and the environment around them. Now, to me, that is classic integration. But where did it begin from? It begins with the community. What we need to realize is that communities, it is at the community level that climate change hits people. It is where poverty is. It's where disasters hit. So actually, these issues are already integrated in the community. So if we are to achieve integration, my number one message is that we should be able to design policies, strategies that include people's realities, people's contexts. It should include the concerns of women, the concerns of children, context specific. And we can only be able to achieve that when we create spaces to engage with these people, create structures that allow participation in this planning and design processes. The second thing is, once we've been able to design the strategic plans, the policies, they must be implemented in the community. But the question we ask ourselves is there capacity to do this? And so the second message that I share here is we must be able to commit to building the capacity of local governments. Local governments or local governance is not just about government. It's about civil society at the local level. It's about communities at the local level. Does local government have the capacity to develop plans, risk plans that are integrated? Does the local government have the capacity to engage communities and get their views? So that is very critical as we move away from here. Once you've achieved capacity from the civil society point of view, it is our desire that going away from here, our governments provide for systematic participation of civil society in decision-making processes, in the design stages, because of the capacity or the advantage that they bring to the table. They have the advantage of mobilizing communities. Civil society have the advantage of innovatively communicating things to the communities, and they are at the local level, they know the local context. So it's our message here that as we go back, we are able to create systematic partnerships, collaboration with civil society and with private sector. Finally, we believe that integration and implementation can be made better when there is accountability. As we commit resources to implementing risk reduction, do we have spaces that allow us to give feedback, to account how we have implemented this, to account why we failed? And so for us to achieve an integrated risk plan and therefore risk actions, it's very important that accountability is included in the integration process. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Akwango, for reiterating again the value of inclusion and partnership, and looking at the burden sharing and the different roles and responsibilities of all key actors, to make community resilience a reality. Very important points that we'll have to come back to. Let me now move to Mr. Brenes from Costa Rica. Costa Rica that counts many communities, across the country. And maybe you share with us your experience on how the needs of those communities and how those communities are being included in the design and the implementation of the national development plan, including a disaster risk reduction plan, as well as resilience building for communities. Over to you, sir.
Muchas gracias. Tengan todos y todas muy buenos días. Mi nombre es Iván Brenes, soy el presidente de la Comisión Nacional de Prevención de Riesgos y Atención de Emergencias de Costa Rica y agradezco mucho la oportunidad de poder compartir con ustedes los esfuerzos que Costa Rica ha venido realizando por acelerar la resiliencia de las comunidades ante los desastres. Quisiera primero compartir un poco sobre el entorno de nuestro país y decirles que Costa Rica es un país ubicado en la zona intertropical de Centroamérica y es reconocida a nivel internacional tanto por su biodiversidad como por sus bellezas naturales. Sin embargo, sus condiciones geológicas y geográficas la convierten en un país con una gran exposición a amenazas naturales. La actividad volcánica, los sismos, los incidentes hidrometeorológicos han sido reiterados a lo largo de toda nuestra historia y además en los últimos años hemos sido testigos de un recrudecimiento del impacto de fenómenos climatológicos como el fenómeno del Niño, amenazas regionales como el virus del Zika, flujos migratorios complejos e incluso el paso del huracán Otto, primer fenómeno meteorológico de este tipo que impactó directamente el territorio costarricense. Para fortalecer su resiliencia, Costa Rica ha venido adquiriendo compromisos importantes en actualizar y crear estrategias nacionales para promover la gestión y la adaptación de cara a los riesgos presentes y futuros a través de la suscripción de distintos instrumentos supranacionales. El marco de Sendai, la Agenda 2030 para el Desarrollo Sostenible, el Acuerdo de París de Cambio Climático encomiendan que es necesario que los estados y otros actores trabajen juntos para reducir y aumentar la resiliencia de las comunidades ante las amenazas. La resiliencia es posible cuando las organizaciones comunales y la participación de la sociedad civil organizada son comprendidas e integradas en los procesos de reducción de riesgo. En Costa Rica, los esfuerzos por incorporar la gestión de riesgo a desastres con un enfoque multiactores para reducir el riesgo a nivel local muestra avances importantes y este involucramiento es perceptible en el enfoque de comprensión de los distintos tipos de amenaza. La emergencia del huracán Otto mostró la importancia de contar con comunidades preparadas y capacitadas para ser integrada dentro de las cadenas de información para seguir la evolución de las amenazas. Uno de los ejemplos importantes fue la comunidad de Barra del Colorado, ubicada en el Caribe costarricense, quienes a través de su comité comunal de emergencia colaboraron de modo activo en las acciones tanto de evacuación como de atención de la población que fue evacuada debido a que el huracán iba a impactar directamente esa región. Y quisiera compartir a través de un pequeño video un poco sobre esta experiencia. Tal vez si me ayudan, por favor. Quiero que me cuente la experiencia de la organización comunitaria aquí, que la comisión ha estado implementando el trabajo que se hizo con Visión Mundial, que se hizo con OVDA. ¿Y eso en qué ayudó para este momento?
Nos ayudó en el mapeo que hicimos con ellos para saber las comunidades cómo llegar a ellos. Y nos ayudó, nos implementó a que nos paráramos y pudiéramos decir, no, nosotros vamos a ayudar a evacuar, porque nosotros nos instruyeron para eso y eso ayudó muchísimo. Yo se lo agradecí a las muchachas y todavía tengo que agradecérselas y a ustedes, pero vean, nos ayudó demasiado. Con eso nosotros le dimos a la comunidad y salimos adelante, gracias a Dios. Luego, la experiencia que nos llevamos para lograr nosotros, que yo mismo tuve con el grupo que coordinar, para evacuar, volverla a reevacuar, traerlas otra vez, ahí fue una experiencia muy bonita, porque la comunidad se portó muy bien, la gente se dispuso, los capitanes de lanchas se dispusieron a poner sus lanchas, nosotros lo único que necesitábamos era gasolina. Y sí estuvimos abastecidos de gasolina gracias a ustedes, entonces nosotros no nos fue mal.
La presente administración ha permitido avanzar en la implementación de un enfoque que busca la reducción del riesgo de desastres, empoderando la resiliencia y la toma de decisiones a nivel comunal a través de una estrategia que ha involucrado acciones tanto a lo interno de nuestra institución como la creación de una oficina de gestión comunitaria y por otra parte el acercamiento con aliados estratégicos que han permitido realizar acciones preventivas en cerca de 400 comunidades en distintas regiones del territorio costarricense. La Oficina de Gestión Comunitaria, en coordinación con los gobiernos locales, ha logrado generar más de 250 comités comunitarios de emergencia en territorios vulnerables a través de un esquema de facilitación y asesoría con un enfoque preventivo orientado a que futuros eventos no vuelvan a generar un estado de emergencia igual a lo ocurrido. Hemos mejorado la preparación y respuesta de las comunidades por medio del conocimiento de amenazas naturales activas y del fortalecimiento de sistemas de vigilancia y aviso, trabajo coordinado por la Comisión Nacional de Emergencias en conjunto con sus aliados estratégicos de la cooperación internacional. En la actualidad se desarrollan importantes iniciativas locales gracias al apoyo de instituciones como USAID, OVDA, como YAICA o como la Cruz Roja, quienes han contribuido en esta tarea de generar comunidades resilientes y seguras de forma articulada, generando empoderamientos de diferentes actores locales entre las instituciones públicas, privadas y las comunidades. Otro ejemplo importante ha sido el esfuerzo que la Comisión Nacional de Emergencias ha venido realizando con el sistema de monitoreo de tsunamis de la Universidad Nacional de Costa Rica y con el Comité Comunal de Emergencias de la Comunidad de Ostional en el Pacífico Norte, iniciativa que ha permitido desarrollar un proceso preventivo de gran relevancia que llevó a esta comunidad costarricense a ser reconocida por la UNESCO como una comunidad Tsunami Ready, que es la segunda comunidad de todo el Océano Pacífico en conseguirlo y que pues gracias a lo exitoso que ha sido esta experiencia pues se está replicando en otras comunidades de la región. Por último, pues hemos propiciado acercamientos con otras organizaciones como la Pastoral Social Cáritas en Costa Rica, con quienes pues hemos suscrito convenios y pues esto nos ha facilitado mucho las tareas en que ellos pues nos han apoyado en las distintas situaciones difíciles que como país hemos enfrentado en los últimos años. Como reto, Costa Rica pues debe fortalecer estos esfuerzos en el tiempo. Tenemos que lograr que la población más vulnerable sea atendida, principalmente aquella que está ubicada en los 75 distritos con menor índice de desarrollo social. Esto está ubicado gracias al programa Tejiendo Desarrollo y esperamos que en los próximos años podamos alcanzar la intervención de las 750 comunidades más vulnerables del territorio costarricense. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brenes. Thank you for highlighting this very important experience. Let me now move to Mr. Nunes Flores. We could hear from these different interventions how efforts from communities themselves, are important, but these efforts, must be accompanied, with knowledge, accompanied with resources. Can you share with us, some experience in terms of resources that can be mobilized, to help communities cope better and then respond to their needs? Over to you, sir.
I'd like to start by expressing in my name and in the name of the European Union our gratitude for the United Nations and the host country for the opportunity that are giving us to take part in this very important event. Coming to the point of my intervention, I've been asked by the organizers to reflect on the issue of the financial mechanisms that are available for communities to invest in their own resilience. I guess we should start by the obvious. I mean, why would they? I mean, why would communities need to invest in their own resilience? And the answer that we give ourselves is that if we are aiming at achieving long-term positive change, then issues like commitment and appropriation are unavoidable, hence ownership. If we are aiming at ownerships, then the commitment of the communities have to be there. In what comes to the different financial mechanisms that are available for communities, let me start by some few generalities. We have expressed time and again the idea that early action is local action. So if this is correct, then early funding should be local funding as well. We need to tie these two things together. Also, we are expressing our interest in becoming way more effective in preparedness and in response. Therefore, we have been advised to be looking into more new ways to become more effective. And a key for this would be to understand disaster risk reduction as an approach rather than a sector. When we look into the different evaluations that are done worldwide on the DRR sector, one key problem that is recurrent is the issue of funding. We are being told that funds are inadequate. By inadequate, probably the evaluators meant that funds are insufficient. Also, we are told the issue of the difficulty in properly assessing DRR investments as being a cross-cutting issue. It's very difficult to properly understand how much money is being invested and where, because again, it's being tackled as a cross-cutting issue. But that is difficult doesn't mean that is impossible. Also, we are being told that DRR investment through communities has to do with the governments. And this is, again, one of the issues that is less explored and more lacking of information in what comes in the academic world and the investigation in DRR. So there is an issue that we also need to explore. When it comes to concretely what communities can do to increase their investment in their own resilience, it will be difficult for me to express what is available for them worldwide and in every community in the world, because this is directly related to the state of development of every different country and community. But going through the classic interventions that we have all been witnessing and funding everywhere in the world, and who could be the entry point for these communities, I would say that when it comes to risk and vulnerability assessments, a key entry point that communities have available for them would be the different Red Cross or Red Crescent national societies, which is a key mandate and part of their work. When it comes to community response and preparedness plans, again, the Red Cross and the Red Crescent is a clear actor that can be used and should be used by them as an entry point. In what comes to the evacuation and early warning systems-related facilities, then the role of the communities, assisted by the Red Cross and Red Crescents, comes to our mind. An issue that is increasing important, climate change and risk monitoring. There are a number of specialized NGOs that work in partnership with the different municipal and local authorities that are, again, a very clear entry point for these communities to present them with their concerns and ambitions. And when it comes to mitigation works, for instance, water source protection, the retrofitting of hospitals and schools, something that we are being asked to explore is the public-private partnership. Private companies do have a very clear interest in having their businesses seeing continuity, and the public sector and private partnership is something that has to be explored. When it comes to the how, there are two clear venues. One is the community organized groups, particularly their lobbying capacity. It's not only an issue about money, it's an issue about being able to mobilize resources, attract attention, and political traction. Community groups in an organized way have to have the the lobbying capacity to advocate on their behalf in the private sector, other communities, and international and national NGOs. And then municipal budgets. This is not new, far from being new. We have been hearing about the importance of different municipal budgets time and again, but it's still, again, every single evaluation points it out clearly. It's still pending. Municipal budgets are not still up to standards. Municipalities are on the front line. Therefore, it is on their interest to have a role in disaster risk reduction. Disaster risk response, disaster risk management funding, I will remind it, their budget should be more or less 5% of their overall budget, and 30% dedicated to response and 70% to non-response. Again, this is not funding. I will finalize with two very concrete examples from the region. One concerns communities that are not organized. We have still, in many parts of the world, communities that have, for one reason or the other, be it because inequality, marginalizations, or violence, are not organized. Even in these very adverse circumstances, it is possible to have an influence and increase their own resilience. For instance, I will put the example of Guatemala in this part of the world, where we do have local sentinel points where remote communities are able to track climate variation that have a direct influence on their livelihoods. This is a model that was developed by communities, again, that are not very well organized, in partnership with an international organization, Action Against Hunger, and that was adopted and scaled up by the Guatemalan government. And in the last 5 years, most of the countries in Central America have included the issue of municipal budgets into their own priorities. So most have now budgets that are tackling not only with fast disasters, but also with slow ones like drought. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite you to join me also in thanking all the panelists for highlighting these extremely important facets and then elements, of the community resilience journey, as we said, from the beginning. Thank you very much, panelists. As I also said at the beginning, we have Ms. Longva, Elizabeth, the Director of Department Development in the government of Norway, who was listening, very, very, very actively. And based on your experience in Norway, what mechanisms do you see could set up a bridge to really fill the gap between national DRR policies and community practices, and also from what you heard from our distinguished panelists, what kind of way forward do you suggest? Over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to make some reflections on your questions. I think that regulatory environment and legislations are the key instruments to strengthen disaster risk resilience at all levels. In Norway, the municipalities are by law given the responsibility for integrating disaster risk reduction into their planning. Legislation imposes municipalities to carry out risk assessments when developing new areas, and also to carry out overall risk assessments to existing risks, threatening buildings and infrastructure that have already been built. The risk assessments are used as a knowledge base for defining relevant measures. To understand, monitor, and map hazards in order to develop efficient response and actions on the ground are fundamental. But there is a quite long way from legislation to concrete actions. In Norway, many municipalities lack competence and resources to make good assessments, and the county governor at the regional level play a crucial role in supporting the municipalities. The county governors are the main channel for coordinating efforts towards the municipalities. The county governors provide guidance, organize workshops, organize exercises, and also carry out audits on how the municipalities fulfill their duties. We see that the system for audit and counseling helps the municipalities to comply with laws and regulations to improve disaster risk reduction awareness. I also think it's very important to end the silos. We have to ensure an inclusive approach to disaster risk reduction where all relevant stakeholders take part. Different sectors are responsible for critical function which contributes to cover the needs of the citizens. And failures in these functions will affect the citizens. In case of large disaster, several of them can fail at the same time, which can lead to severe problems. To cope with this, public, private, and civil society have to work together to strengthen disaster risk management. Institutions and decision makers should be measured by their ability to improve cooperation and coordination to make sure that we build resilient communities. But I also think that the work with disaster risk reduction can only be successful if the relationship between governance and the citizens are based on trust. Norway is characterized as a society with a high level of trust between citizens and authorities. Trust is the key element for building resilient communities, and the social contract between people and decision makers cannot be underestimated in this important work. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Lungvo, for your intervention and sharing your experiences. And the mechanisms that you have mentioned are very practical. And thank you. And now the floor is open for discussion. And please raise your hands to ask for your question. And please, if you want to add your comment. Before asking the question, please introduce yourself first. And you can also mention the name of the panelists to whom your question goes. Please. Second.
Thank you very much for your presentations. It's not a question, but just sharing experience from Indonesia. Because Indonesia has a very rich tradition of volunteerism and also a very good structure of the government supporting volunteerism. So currently, as a part of SFDR rollout in Indonesia, they've kind of formed a special working group on volunteerism and community participation, which is making sure that, the volunteerism and community participation becomes an integral part of the national baseline status report for Sendai framework, as well as the roadmap document which is being currently prepared. Also, there is a special sectoral report which is on the baseline status, which is being prepared, looking at the issues, challenges, gaps, and also the priorities for action in the lines of Sendai framework. And this will look at the volunteerism and community participation at all levels with the volunteerism in DRM supported by the line ministries, by different volunteer organizations. Indonesia has one of the largest guide movements and also good Red Cross movement. So it's just looking at all the aspects and faith-based organizations and including their voice into SFDRI implementation. So this is just one way of systematically integrating volunteerism and community participation in SFDRR monitoring and in coherence, of course, with the SDGs and World Humanitarian Summit, which actually different ministries are supporting. And so we are currently looking at the coherence part, but the basic for SFDRR, it's already being rolled out.
So thank you for your comment. And the second. Next one. Second, the first one. The second. Francis? Yes.
Oui, je suis François Grunewald d'un institut de recherche français spécialisé sur la gestion des crises. Et je voudrais peut-être souligner un point qui me semble important et qui est souvent oublié, et j'aimerais bien avoir la vision de nos panélistes là-dessus. Dans beaucoup de catastrophes où nous avons évalué la première réponse, donc ce qui se passe pendant les premiers jours, où les acteurs des communautés sont souvent les premiers répondeurs, avec les volontaires de la Croix-Rouge, les institutions locales, etc. On s'aperçoit que ces acteurs de première ligne des communautés sont souvent sous une très très forte pression et sont souvent confrontés à des choses terribles et que souvent ils sont oubliés des programmes d'assistance psychosociale. Donc on va après regarder les victimes, mais les gens qui ont dû sortir les victimes de sous les ruines, les gens qui ont dû transporter les corps et les morts, les volontaires de la Croix-Rouge qui ont dû mettre les gens dans des sacs et les évacuer, souvent ils sont complètement laissés de côté et ils sont des grands oubliés des programmes d'assistance, alors que souvent leur propre communauté, leur propre famille elles-mêmes ont souffert. On a eu des exemples dans des contextes comme Haïti où les volontaires, des gens qui sont partis pour la première réponse, ont quitté directement leur travail pour aller s'occuper des victimes, et c'est seulement le lendemain, quand ils sont rentrés chez eux, et qu'ils ont vu qu'en fait leur famille était en partie morte aussi. Et donc comment on pourrait faire aussi que ces programmes de renforcement des capacités des acteurs communautaires prennent aussi mieux en compte les souffrances de ces acteurs de première ligne qui sont les grands oubliés. Merci.
Thank you for your question. Mr. Essie, after that. And then I would like to invite Lisa from the Guatemala.
Gracias. En el contexto del panel que estamos hablando sobre resiliencia comunitaria y partiendo que la vida comunitaria gira en torno a sus territorios, a sus ecosistemas y a la dinámica e interacción que se da de esos elementos, de esos seres en esos ámbitos, en ese sentido quisiera preguntarle a las personas del panel qué pueden compartirnos del apoyo o de los cambios que las actividades productivas y extractivas de explotación de esos ecosistemas en sus territorios está haciendo la empresa privada, debido a que las comunidades luchan, se preparan, hacen mucho trabajo de voluntariado para estar preparados y para tratar de ser resilientes, pero no son solos en los territorios. Y partiendo que, como en el caso de Guatemala, la mayoría del territorio está en manos privadas y ese sector privado inflige un determinado deterioro a esos ecosistemas y las comunidades manejan los menos recursos posibles a pesar de que están ubicadas en lugares vulnerables y se nos mide con indicadores globales de acuerdo al Producto Interno Bruto y a esa producción que se exporta. Entonces sí estaría interesada que los miembros del panel nos puedan compartir cómo se está haciendo corresponsable en este trabajo para que las comunidades logren esa resiliencia que ellos por tanto tiempo han luchado y se preparan.
Thank you. Yes, from the Guatemala.
Yes, I have a question for the panel, for the representative from the European Union regarding funding. You said that early funding is important, and I completely agree with you that early funding for local level is really important. We know that the big funding through the UN for disaster is mainly through the SURF. The SURF has no envelope, no way of supporting local communities, no way of supporting crises before they happen. The opposite we have in the International Federation of the Red Cross, Red Crescent, their disaster relief emergency fund, which they at least used to be able to allocate for imminent crisis. It means before the crisis. I wonder, is the European Union interested in developing funding schemes that are able to do or to follow up funding for local level for imminent crisis before the crisis? Thank you.
So for first question, I think, let's see. Yes.
Was there a question from Jorge at Guatemala? Why don't we take that question and then we go through the panel for each of the answers then and sum up the session. Jorge.
Gracias. He podido percibir de todos nuestros ponentes que hay un esfuerzo importante en reconocer el valor de los recursos naturales en esta construcción de la resiliencia comunitaria. Pero quisiera conocer su opinión en cuanto a que esta utilización de estos ecosistemas se convierta realmente en algo importante, en algo básico, pensando, bueno, y sabiendo que el 90% de los desastres naturales tienen que ver con el clima, bueno, especialmente con el tema del agua. Entonces, el manejo de los recursos ecosistémicos y de los servicios que prestan a las comunidades es algo bien importante. Entonces, quisiera saber su opinión en cuanto a cómo podemos incluir cada vez más esta importancia de los ecosistemas en la construcción de la resiliencia comunitaria. Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will ask for another question. Yes. Yes, please answer the questions.
Thank you so much. I would like to respond to the question from Guatemala about shared responsibility with private sector. I think the deeper you go to the community level, the more fragmented these different actors are. You find that private sector has not even had the space to think or to plan or even to engage with communities. And the experience that I bring is when we're trying to mobilize communities to get ready to adapt to climate change in agriculture, we actually involved private sector. And the angle from which we approached was, first of all, to make them appreciate that the more they ignore the impacts of climate change, the more their businesses and profits will be affected. And so from that angle, we sensitize them on what are the opportunities in disaster risk reduction, for instance. What are the opportunities in climate change for them to come in and work with communities? And then the other thing that we used, the other strategy we used was to actually bring, for the first time, private sector on the same talking table with the communities. And so as we move out there to make these partnerships realities, there has to be commitment to actually create structures that allow for, engagement, so that private sector is made to see things from a different angle and begin to appreciate their role in resilience building. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And please.
If I press, it works. Each and every time that donors are evaluated, no matter which donor and no matter where, we obtain the same answer. you need to become more flexible. I think that the issue that you've raised, the flexibility of funding mechanism, is an issue that is being discussed deeply and broadly, and change is happening. Two things that are working as we speak is, I'm talking about the European Union now, is our investment in the so-called safety nets. This is happening, for instance, just two examples that I'm aware of. It's happening in Ethiopia and it's happening in Turkey. In the case of Turkey, it's about making cash available to host communities and refugees and displaced communities. And in the case of Ethiopia, it's classical strengthening of safety nets. Why? Because what is being discussed is the possibility of reprogramming money that was already available, but because of a new crisis, a new event, needs to be modified. This is happening. And the second goal that we are aiming at is scaling up. So the answer to your question is yes, it is being done. Is it sufficient? No, it is not. I mean, as we want to level it, the new ways of working, as everything that is new is not yet up to standards, but it's a concern that we are hearing time and again and that we are responding to. In this part of the world, for instance, the European Union was one of the very first investors in the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance Facility that provides, this is a funding allocation that is immediately mobilized in case of a disaster, namely in this part of the world, a hurricane. But again, the message is there, well registered. We need to become more flexible to be able to reprogram funding and to scale it up. And if I may, again, take the word and discuss about the example of Haiti that was mentioned before, and addressing your concern, what are we doing, the European Union or whoever, what is the international community doing to help those people that are on the first line in the case of a disaster? In our very own particular case, and I think that other donors have been following the same course, we have had for the last almost 25 years a community-based disaster preparedness program, which precisely tackles this issue, how to prepare for, before, during and after a disaster. Your concern is the during, our concern as well was the before. The toll that you mentioned, I mean, the psychological pressure that first responders that live in a community that has been affected, their relatives have been affected, are missing and disappeared. It has been the object, as you mentioned, the Red Cross work and our financing time and again. The Americas in general is one part of the world where this has been on the top of the agenda of many donors, as USAID and ourselves. I mean, and we can discuss bilaterally later, Haiti, if you wish. I was there, so at your disposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vicente Romando. And any other panelists who want to add questions?
Sí, quería referirme sobre el tema de la protección de ecosistemas y los efectos de las empresas privadas en las comunidades. En ese sentido, pues pensamos que es indispensable la inclusión en todos los procesos de toma de decisiones en materia de gestión de riesgo. Este proceso debe ser un proceso inclusivo y pues a través de él es importante la incorporación del sector privado para pues poder dar un acompañamiento en un proceso de desarrollo sostenible en el cual los efectos que se vayan generando en las comunidades y el medio ambiente pues sean los menores posibles. En ese sentido, pues en Costa Rica pues ha apostado a la conservación. 30% del territorio costarricense corresponde a áreas protegidas. También se han dado importantes aportes en materia de generación de energías limpias y pues a partir de esto es que pues esto genera también pues mucha resiliencia en las comunidades y esto pues es un sentir de la población costarricense y más bien estamos incorporando los elementos ambientales dentro de sistemas de alerta temprana a través de la incorporación de tecnología satelital.
Thank you, Mr. Ivan. And any other? Please.
Desde el espacio de la sociedad civil, ¿verdad?, que es el que trabajo fuertemente, la responsabilidad con la empresa privada es lo que decía un compañero, es la inclusión. Si no hacemos esa inclusión, es como dicen en mi pueblo, ¿verdad? Dice un refrán por allá en Honduras, es ahí donde la mula botó a Genaro, porque siempre hemos estado separados, ¿verdad? Y siempre pensamos nosotros que sociedad civil con empresa privada pues no tiene que ver nada, pero tenemos una experiencia en la mesa de gestión de riesgo del Valle Sula en el sector norte de Honduras, en donde ya se está trabajando, ¿verdad?, con la empresa privada, en donde ya tenemos nosotros ahí ese acercamiento, esa inclusión para poder hacer posible que esa responsabilidad social que ellos tienen, ¿verdad?, sea efectiva y que la interacción con ellos sea más visible y que podamos juntos, ¿verdad?, hacer posible que el tema de gestión de riesgo sea un trabajo en común, ¿verdad?, y que sea un trabajo en que todos podamos participar. No es fácil, pero tenemos que hacer el esfuerzo por hacerlo. En cuanto a los destrucciones de ecosistemas y de lo que hablaba el compañero, es importante esa relación entre sociedad civil y gobiernos locales, ¿verdad?, para hacer posible que las barreras, ¿verdad?, que se impongan en este tema sean legales, no solamente de que un líder en una comunidad diga no vamos a permitir esto, sino que legalmente desde el espacio municipal podamos tener políticas públicas que nos ayuden a que estas cosas no lleguen a ser tan drásticas en nuestras comunidades.
Thank you, Ms. Mira.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to basically touch upon the one particular issues of the private sectors, particularly involved in ecosystems. In case of most of Japan, basically, but especially in the disaster-affected area, in the past 6 years, the number of the private sectors has been very actively involved with that local community to present the ecosystems or eco-based solutions for the creation of this area. So it is very, very important for Japan actually to utilize those the private sectors in any aspects for the ecosystems in the area of the development of the community. That is actually that one thing. One thing that is very, very active now, even after this disaster happened in 2011. So that is I can say one thing in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirushi. And before closing the section, I would like to invite again each panelist to provide closing reflections on the discussions for 1 minute.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Excellencies, Mr. Chairman. Just 1 minute, I would like to just mention about that the community-based involvement in the decision-making processes. On my slide previously, I showed you that there were a number of groups actually creates that inclusive city with the number of the opinions. So that have to be reflected into our development plan. That's we actually conducted through the exercise. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Because time is running short, Mr. SC will summarize this discussion.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. And because of time, I will just try to highlight, some of the key elements that came out of the discussion and the presentation, hoping that it will address also some of the summary points of our panelists. First of all, key words that came across all during the session: inclusion, engagement, participation, ownership. Communities and all its components are really part of the solution, and we should make sure that everybody is taken on board and all the expertise and resources, put to bear in order to undertake this resilience journey. This does not go without a certain number of values that pave the way: trust, respect, acceptance, accompaniment, and facilitation. Because it does not happen on its own, until it is then facilitated and supported, across the way. It requires change in behaviors, change in attitudes, change in practice, and also openness to integrate new knowledge and new experience, in order to change really the state, of the affairs that were putting communities in the same situation of vulnerabilities. It's about addressing dysfunctionalities, making it context specific, but also correct the inequities that were highlighted as far as situations of women are concerned, situation of people with different abilities also that needs to be taken into account. The key role of communities then has been always central to that, but it's very important to note that we cannot shift the whole burden of resilience and the whole burden of response to the shoulders of communities alone. And this calls for partnership, and partnership has been a key word across the board. Partnership between government and communities, government exercising their leadership and creating an enabling environment. Partnership between the public sector and the private sector. Partnership between the urban and rural, and partnership, of course, between men and women to address the gender gaps and disparities, and involvement and partnership among all people with different abilities. It also appears that resilience is not only about the present, it's also about the future, and the partnership between this generation and the next one is critical. What are we going to be doing today to have the outcome we want tomorrow, to have a situation of an environment which is free of risks tomorrow for the next generation is also extremely important. And in that spirit, 17 million volunteers of the Red Cross and Red Crescent in 191 countries, stand ready to partner with you. In that spirit also, we invite all of you to join the 1 Billion Coalition for Resilience that will be contributing into saving lives, alleviating human suffering, and build resilience, and by so doing, contributing into making this world more inclusive and safer for each of us and then for all of us. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you very much for making this session a very rich exchange, and bon appetit.
And thank you very much. Thank you very much, all the panelists and discussants and all the participants for their active contribution to this very rich discussion, and actually to accelerate the efforts in building community resilience to disasters. We should have better preparation and situation analysis. We need more concrete data from all stakeholders, and based on that, we have to try short, medium, and long-term plans for building resilience community. In doing so, financial constraints can't be elicited for our least developed countries, including Myanmar. And as a conclusion, we want to ask more coherence among us, and we want more support from the donors, and we should focus on resilient structure. We have to try not to leave no one, especially from vulnerable population and the marginal groups, with inclusive approach. Thank you very much.